Welcome back. In this lecture, we are going to see the concept of legitimation crisis as given by Habermas, right? As given by Habermas. Who was Habermas? Habermas, concept of legitimation crisis by Habermas. Who was Habermas? Habermas was a scholar of deliberative democracy. He talks about civic republicanism, and he is a Frankfurt School scholar. What is Frankfurt School? It is cultural school of neo-Marxism, right? So Habermas is a scholar of Frankfurt School. He talks about culture and all those things, but he has also talked in criticism of advanced capitalist societies, late capitalist societies, and capitalist societies. As he is a scholar of deliberative democracy, he is a scholar of civic republicanism, and he is a scholar of neo-Marxism, right? Then he will, of course, criticize state in advanced capitalist society. So Habermas, in his book Legitimation Crisis, Legitimation Crisis in advanced capitalist societies or in late capitalism. What is advanced capitalist society or late capitalism? Right? We have actually seen this. This advanced capitalist societies or late capitalism is basically post-capitalist societies. Post-capitalist societies. What is post-capitalism? Post-capitalism basically means that your politics, not your politics, your economy is capitalist, capitalist, and is your society is socialist, or better word is welfareist, right? We have actually seen this in end of ideology, right? End of ideology. What does end of ideology say? That liberalism is best kind of life. Western way is best way of life because it is best of both the worlds, whereby there will be innovation as well as taking care of the society, right? So this was view in end of ideology or end of history, whereby an a capitalist economy and welfarist society is best way of life, right? This is post capitalism, this is advanced capitalism, capitalist societies, or this is late capitalism, right? So this system, how does this system of post capitalism, whereby economy is capitalist and society is welfarist, how does this system face legitimation crisis? This was the thesis, or this was the theory of Habermas. This was the theory of Habermas, right? How post-capitalist societies face legitimation crisis. This was the theory of Habermas. And what is the theory like, or how the theory develops? It is like this. We first analyze what was original capitalism was. Original capitalism, right? Or by original capitalism, I mean classical liberalism, right? Remember classical liberalism. What will classical liberalism say? Classical liberalism will say that classical liberalism will say that market should be laissez-faire. Market should work on market forces, right? Market should be laissez-faire. Market should work on market forces, right? There should be a lot of entrepreneurship, and there and in political system there should be democracy, and in governance they say that there should be minimum government and maximum governance. What does this mean? This means essentially one thing, whereby state will be limited to its essential functions of legislation, execution, and adjudication. State will do only one thing, which is maintaining order and peace. All other things will happen on their own. There will be no social justice. There will be no welfareism. Market will work on its own. State will be very much limited. One who works will get remuneration. One who is entrepreneurship will get remuneration, and one who does not work, there is no social justice for them. There is no welfareism for them. This is original capitalism, whereby market has a role and state has a separate role. This means this means economy, economic sphere and political sphere are mutually exclusive spheres, and for which Habermas has used this word of decoupling of economy and politics. This was originally how capitalism worked, whereby you see market will be limited to market functions, and government will be limited to maintaining law and order, just that. So there is a sort of decoupling between economic and political sphere, right? This was original capitalism, this was classical liberalism, so to say. Then then came idea of post capitalism, right? Why idea of post capitalism came? Because there was fear of revolution by Marxists. There was fear of revolution by workers, and a lot of capital came from colonies as well. So state could do welfare, right? Post capitalist state or post capitalism basically mean welfare states. I have just explained what is post capitalist state, where there is it where there is capitalism in economy and socialism in politics, right? So state is involved in a lot of things, right? State is involved in a lot of things. State is involved in economy as well, and state is involved in welfareism as well, right? How does state do welfare, right? So what post capitalist system assumes is that industry is going to be always in boom phase. Industry is always going to be in a boom phase, and economy will produce capital in time immemorial, right. The economy will continue to produce profit. This is the basic assumption of post capitalist economy, or and post capitalist states think that on the back of capital produced by economy on the back of capital produced by economy, what they will do is they will do welfare of its people, right? So it happens like this. I'll make a flowchart for this. So let's assume this is the market of post-capitalist society. This economy is capitalist economy, right? Capitalist economy will produce, of course, it will produce profit, right? Will produce profit. A part of this profit will be kept by entrepreneur or business owner, and the part of this profit will be given to state as tax, right? This tax state will this tax is given to state. This tax state will use to do welfare of its citizens, right? Now what is the issue in this case? When state does all of its welfare on basis of industry provided tax or industry provided capital, what happens is that, right, imagine there is this one party, party 1, there is this another party, party 2. Party 1 says that if we come to election, we will do welfare of X, welfare of quantity X. Another party comes who says, I will do welfare of X plus 10, right? Now this welfare is happening on industry given taxes. And what is the nature of democratic system? That you have to cater a lot of poors. So there is going to be competition among parties, who gives more social justice, or who gives more welfare, right? So this tax that is given by industry to state is still the same, but state want to do more welfare. So what happens is that state demand more tax from industry, but there is limit to which industry can provide taxes to states, right? There is a limit to which industry can provide taxes to states, because because the industry can produce so much, right? There is limit to that. So when this happen, that that limit is breached, how much you can demand for from an industry, and how much an industry needs for sustaining itself, when that limit is reached, industry or economy will fall flat. Industry and economy will fall flat, and state will have to eventually roll back to its original function of law and order. Law and order. State cannot do welfare, because there is there is no taxes that industry is generating, on back of which state is able to do welfare, right? This is the basic idea. And in this basic idea, that industry is producing some capital, a part of that capital is given as a form of tax to state, and on back of that tax, state is doing welfare of its citizens. But there is limit to how much tax that an industry can give to state. So what happens in this situation is that welfare gets stopped, and the point at which welfare stops, you will see what you will see protests. You will see protests. When you see protest, this is basically legitimation crisis. This is basically legitimation crisis. Protests protest for the reason that we were having a certain level of welfare which has now stopped. It is legitimation crisis. And this is the issue in post-capitalist society. This is the analysis of legitimation crisis in post-capitalist, advanced capitalist, or late capitalist societies. Right, right. So the protests are symbol of legitimation crisis. Why this protest happen? Why this protest happen? As we have seen, because state is not able to do welfare anymore because industry is not able to provide any more money to state. When industry don't have power or money to provide any more money to state, then state becomes overburdened with responsibilities of welfare. Right? State cannot bear the responsibilities of welfare anymore. That means state is overburdened. This is overburdening of state, which means state cannot bear responsibility of welfare anymore. When state cannot bear responsibility of welfare anymore, state will roll back. State will roll back means what? State will roll back means state will go back. State will roll back to its original functions. Original functions of legislation, executive, and adjudication only. That is, state will only maintain law and order. When state will go back to its original function of maintaining law and order, what happens is that people will feel cheated and people would want welfare back. If people want welfare back, there are going to be protests. When protests happen, you see legitimation crisis in action. Legitimation crisis in action. Right? So I will give you example of Greece. Right? This is very academic example. Most of the books will cite this example only. How Greece, how Greece became, how Greece had legitimation crisis. Right? Legitimation crisis. What is legitimation crisis? That is crisis of legitimacy, that in people don't believe in state. People give don't have their consent for state. People have withdrawn their consent. This is legitimation crisis. Crisis of legitimacy, crisis of consent. Right? We are understanding example of Greece. What happened with Greece was, right, Greek political parties started giving a lot of freebies. Right? A lot of freebies they started giving. Right? A lot of direct benefit transfer, a lot of talks about universal basic income. Right? All these freebies started, so that Greek party started promising and giving to its citizens. Right? Freebies, a lot of freebies were given. Right? I will give you one context, that Greek is a member of European Union. Right? Greece is a member of European Union. I have given this context in a for a particular reason. जो बाद में that will understand when we'll understand the whole thing. Right? Greek parties started Greek parties started promising a lot of freebies, and when they come to power, they have to fulfill those promises. So freebies were given to its citizens. What happens with freebies then is this thing whereby fiscal deficit increases. Right? Fiscal deficit increases. Now the ideal fiscal deficit that a state should have is 2 to 4%. It is ideal. In India, this is range of 2 to 6. 2 to 4 is ideal. Greek had fiscal deficit of double digits. right? 10+% of fiscal deficit they had because they were giving a lot of freebies, right? So in this situation, one more thing happened, whereby they used to get some money from EU. They used to get some money from EU. But in 2014, Eurozone crisis happened. What is Eurozone crisis? It is basically crash of euro currency. Right? Cash of euro is Eurozone crisis. In 2014, Eurozone crisis happened. Because Eurozone crisis happened, Greek state could not give a level of social security to its citizens. When state denied social security, when state denied social security, what happened were massive protests, massive protest in Greece, right? So from freebies to massive protests, this is how in advanced capitalist societies legitimation crisis is seen, right? This is how in advanced capitalist societies eurozone crisis is seen, right? Then we see, then we'll see example of let's say USA, right? Not really the legitimation crisis, but I will give you example of USA in the sense that who was in power in USA in 2008? It was Bush Jr., right? Bush Jr. was in power. When Bush Jr. was in power, what happened was 2008, in 2008 we see global financial crisis in USA. Global financial crisis happens, right? Subprime crisis. You must have learned in economy subprime borrowers and subprime crisis. Subprime crisis happened in USA, whereby banks had a lot of NPAs, right? They had a lot of NPAs. In this situation, when economy it has busted, bubble has busted, what happened was Bush Jr. lost his a lot of his legitimacy because he could not control this crisis, right? This crisis led to in 2008 who came to power? Obama, because Bush Jr. could not control the damage which was done by subprime crisis due to global financial crisis, right? Then protest happened and that showed legitimacy crisis, right? Legitimacy crisis, this is legitimation crisis, this is legitimacy crisis, whereby you promise a lot, you deliver a lot, but there is limitation to delivery. You cannot sustain a lot of freebies, and when you roll back the freebies, when you stop giving freebies, people will start protest, and that protest is legitimation crisis. And through that protests, people will show to the government that we are not going to give you consent for governing us, right? Now this legitimation crisis, now this legitimation crisis, legitimation crisis, this legitimation crisis is reflected in capitalist system in three levels. First level is economic, second level is political, third level is socio-cultural. First level is economic, second level is political, third level is socio-cultural. In all three levels, we see we see crisis of legitimacy. In all three levels, we see crisis of legitimacy. Right? Crisis is reflected in all three systems. And what is crisis? It is basically protest. People will protest because their demands of welfare are not fulfilled. And it will be seen in economic sphere, it will be seen in political sphere, and it will be seen in socio-cultural sphere. How in economic sphere? Crisis, legitimation crisis, right? That productivity of an economy goes down because industries have to give a lot of their profit as tax. So economic crisis is there. Political crisis. How political crisis? Because government changes. Government changes. Right? I give you example of Bush and Obama. Bush Bush had legitimation crisis because of global financial crisis, and that is why Obama came to power. A major reason why Obama came to power was global financial crisis of 2008. Then you see legitimation crisis in socio-cultural sphere as well, whereby you will see a lot of books and movies and let's say articles and essays, songs even songs even are are portraying that legitimation crisis, right? If you have heard this song by Childish Gambino, "This Is America," right? "This Is America" is a visual portrayal of legitimation crisis. Childish Gambino has showed a lot of problem with America today in that song, right? Racial discrimination. Then you see school shootings and all of those things, right? So legitimation crisis is reflected in socio-cultural dimension as well, right? Then there are books. Thomas Piketty's book Capital in 21st Century, right? Movies like, there is this one movie on stock market, Wolf of Wall Street, right? Wolf of Wall Street has shown how stock market manipulation happens, right? How uh, bad stocks, penny stocks are sold, right? Why? One of the reason why global financial crisis happened, apart from subprime loaning or subprime borrowing, was was bubble that formed in stock market. So movies also reflect legitimation crisis. You see articles and essays online. You see vlogs. You see vlogs. So socio-cultural aspect also reflect legitimation crisis. Political aspect also reflect legitimation crisis, and economic aspects also reflect legitimation crisis. In capitalist system, legitimation crisis will be reflected in all three dimensions, right? Then, then what Habermas does? Habermas, Habermas, Habermas types of crisis. Habermas types of crisis. The first type of crisis he gives is economic crisis. Economic crisis. What is economic crisis? Economic crisis is basically not good functioning of economy. Economic crisis is due to inequitable distribution of wealth, right? Economic crisis, crisis in economy. Then economic crisis will lead to rationality crisis, right? Rationality crisis. What is rationality crisis? Right? What is rationality crisis? Rationality crisis is government is not able to solve economic crisis, right? Government is not able to manage economic crisis, right? Government is not able to manage economic crisis. Because of economic and rationality crisis, you will see legitimation crisis, right? You will see legitimation crisis. Legitimation crisis is basically, it is basically people have withdrawn consent to be governed. People are no longer ready to give their consent for government to be governed, right? People are openly disobeying law. People don't want to follow governmental law. People don't want to follow uh, government, right? And this legitimation crisis act as positive feedback loop and exasperates exasperates rationality and economic crisis, right? And the final crisis which happens due to combined effect of economic rationality and legitimation crisis is motivational crisis, right? That people are not motivated to follow political authority. People don't want to follow political authority because they don't think political authority is taking care of them, right? I will give you example of how one crisis leads to another crisis, and we will talk about India, right? Even though Habermas's thesis was on advanced capitalist societies, but I think an Indian example fits more appropriately here. Even though I can give you another example, but let's stick to India. More particularly, colonial India, right? Colonial India, and let's just think before let's just think before Quit India movement of 1942. August 1942, Quit India movement started, and let's just think and let's just put yourself in the shoes of common man in time of Quit India movement. Just before Quit India movement, you see economic crisis in India because just just before Quit India movement or during Quit India movement, you see World War II happening. Due to World War II, a lot of resources are being spent on army. So economic crisis is there. Business is not booming, money is not there, and there is no equitable distribution of wealth. Right? That that and also that the British government is not able to give any solution to manage that economic crisis because they themselves are fighting war. They don't have enough resources to take care of Indians, right? They have rationality crisis. They don't know what to do. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. That has led to legitimation crisis, whereby Gandhi has said, "Do or die, but don't live but don't live in seeing your motherland in humiliation. So people started quit India movement. They started openly disobeying law, and that that gave a positive feedback loop to rationality and economic crisis. And due to effect of all these three, you see motivational crisis, whereby people did not have motivation to follow political authority, right? And the combination of all four, economic, rationality, legitimation, and motivation, these or full crisis will come together and form sorry, not legitimation, sorry, will form systemic crisis. Will form systemic crisis. Now, what is the solution for systemic crisis? Right? Solution or way ahead or prescription solution. If a system goes in legitimation crisis, what is the solution? Right? Solutions were given by Habermas himself. Right? The first solution was deliberative democracy. Deliberative democracy. What is deliberative democracy? That people are coming together and talking it out. Right? The most reasonable argument wins, and people performs communicative action. Deliberative democracy, communicative action. What is communicative actions? People come together, talk about their issues, and the idea which is most rational of all of them, not the idea which has most votes, but the idea which is most rational, will be the chosen idea, and on that idea will be the next steps taken. Where do you perform communicative action? You perform communicative action in public sphere. This is the legitimation crisis as explained by Habermas. As explained by Habermas. Right? So we have seen legitimacy, we have seen legitimation crisis. The next step that we are going to understand is Marxist view on legitimacy. In Marxist view on legitimacy, you have to understand only one thing. You have to understand only one thing. Legitimacy is hegemony for them. If question comes, mention this. If question comes on legitimacy, mention that this in Marxist discourse, legitimacy is seen as hegemony of dominant class. And then just start explaining hegemony. Gramsci, you explain Gramsci, you explain Althusser, right? And your question will be done. That is Marxist view on legitimacy. That they think uh, legitimacy is basically hegemony. That's it, right? Then this is also the criticism of legitimacy, concept of legitimacy. Then we will see indication of legitimacy. How do you see that there is legitimacy behind a state or behind a government? If there is peace, there is harmony, there is order in society, right? Then you see people do their duties. People do their duties like giving vote, right? Like giving vote, like paying respects to national anthem and all those things. People pay taxes. People pay taxes, then people have motivation to follow government. People will think that my taxes are being used in right place. These are indications of legitimacy. Then there are some methods to gain legitimacy. How do you gain legitimacy? Start with something which is very fundamental: school, right? School. Then propaganda or mass media. Then by doing welfare, social service. If your judiciary is impartial, right? Freedom of praise, freedom of speech and expression, fundamental rights, fundamental rights, right? Freedom of trade, all those things, rights, welfare, social justice, all those things are methods to legitimacy, right? This was this was legitimacy and legitimation crisis, and this was the first concept in political science which we have seen, which is power and legitimacy. I hope you understood this concept in quite a detail. From next lecture, we will see we will see theories of state, and we'll start with sovereignty. We'll actually start with sovereignty. What is sovereignty? How is sovereignty? And we'll see one or two perspectives on sovereignty. Austinian view. We'll see uh, pluralistic view on sovereignty as well. So this was legitimacy. From the next lecture, I'll start with sovereignty. I hope you understood this. Bye bye.